My birth name, as me, I, Richard Trevino, began with seeking as a seeker who had been associated with seeking knowledge regarding all that is, that led to a recognition that Richard Trevino was an illusionary construct as a dream about the story of Richard Trevino. Now Richard Trevino is with everything and nothing as Richard Trevino doing something. Everything and nothing is dreaming that it is Richard Trevino doing something. What Richard Trevino thinks he does next is simply being done. Richard Trevino is being dreamt because this is all there is. In the isness, there is aliveness. All that is happening, has happened, and will always be happening. Self-inquiry provides the witnesser with connectivity after partial liberation. There is partial liberation in embodiment. Absolute liberation happens once there is no longer an embodiment that had been supporting and enacting upon partial liberation. Absolute liberation happens while the witnesser remains in partial liberation until the witnesser collapses and there is no longer the apparent appearance of embodiment. When this is spoken in this manner, it is associated with speech that is supported by an approach to explaining the manner by which non-dualism or non-duality is expressed. Similarly, with the expressions found in Eastern mysticism via Advaita Vedanta. In 1986, this was a year of a personal awakening that had occurred prior to a separation of self. It was partial liberation. Just as partial liberation happens, the partial liberation as the collapse of the I, me, that was so birth named Richard Trevino, happened in the year of 1986. Then, curiously, a sense of separation of self returned and happened again, whereby the birth name or the story of I, the I, me, that is and was Richard Trevino. The story of that I, me, that was so birth named Richard Trevino, began to restore and made an attempt to recover the continuation of that sense of separation of self. That separation of self collapses once the egoic nature fears and beliefs, conditioning returns to self. Explanations about that process of liberation that happens can be explained using speech and the English language. For without knowledge or speech of Sanskrit, or Aramaic, or other ancient tongue that uttered the words and verbiage that had a frequency of energy conducive to a collapse as that sense of separation of self. Upon taking embodiment, self is one with all that is, in that innocence. And it is in the wonder and splendor, in that innocence, of being one with all that is, happens. Then the separation of self begins once there is indoctrination of reality. Indoctrination of reality are beliefs, fears, ego. Ego in such a way where there is self-image. In the Western world, this is reinforced via academia, the public school system, religious beliefs that are prominent, especially in the southern regions of the United States, that has been described and so named the Bible Belt. These things, these experiences, this story of Richard Trevino is associated with the religious beliefs that caused the self to begin separating. Attendance of schools, attendance of the public school system, attending a church. These types of indoctrinations and conditionings are the components that promote a separation of self. Then another story begins. Another metaphor to use to describe this, outside of non-duality circles, outside of Advaita Vedanta. Can be viewed in this way. Embodiment is as an avatar. Embodiment is as, or likened to, a character in a video game as an avatar. The programmer that is controlling that avatar or that game player would be the self. In New Age circles that were prominent during the 1990s in the United States, referred to self or essence or the soul as the higher soul. And another example of this, as these concepts and ideas and ways of explaining consciousness. Consciousness is self. Consciousness is fundamental in such a way that the self is one with all that is. Therefore, embodiment or an avatar in this game grid, in this reality, it is a seemingly apparent physical manifestation or a physical association with reality in such a way that the avatar or embodiment utilizes five senses: sense of sight, sense of smell, sense of touch, and sense of hearing. These five sensory modalities of the avatar or of embodiment is a way that the self seemingly negotiates experiences of the self via consciousness. All that is seemingly rearranges to accommodate the self's perspectives of reality, or your avatar. What is awakening? What is enlightenment? Who am I? Whom am I? Am I embodiment? I am experiencing reality that is seemingly physical. There is the appearance of embodiment, and yet there is recognition via partial liberation that this is an illusion. The separation of a sense of being separated from self is associated with the egoic nature, fears, and beliefs that infringed upon the self during the onset of the appearance of embodiment as an incarnation. Therefore, the purpose of a story that is narrated by the self via the witnesser begins experiencing all that is via a process of conscious evolution. Consciousness is evolving. All that is provides the precipitus of evolution to take place for consciousness to evolve. All that is seemingly evolves, and yet it is whole, it is complete, it is perfect. And yet there appears to be an apparent appearance of purpose. Otherwise, experiencing all that is would not be apparent via the appearance of embodiment as physical states.